Why is it that so many foreigners stay here in Dumaguete in the Philippines? In this video, I'm going to try to answer some of that. Dumaguete has this strange magnetic property to it that it's hard to put your finger on it, but people stay much longer than they intended to. I know I have. So this one's hard to explain, but anybody that's ever been here understands. Dumaguete is somewhere between a small city and a large town. So places like Manila was built to be the colonial capital, Cebu, a major trade hub, Iloilo and Bacolod, the Sugar Bowl. But this was never meant to be that. So it was originally, in the Spanish occupation era, was just a small port meant to support the agricultural interior, defend against Moro pirate raids. Now, partly because of the geography, the mountain ranges, and the accessibility of the port itself, it was never really able to outgrow it. And even if it could, I can imagine somewhere in the history people have resisted that growth, because the problem you get with these big, highly ambitious cities is they kind of swallow themselves. You get these wide, parading streets and then segmented districts of neighborhoods and barangay, and then anytime you build features like this, a plaza that's meant to be for the people, it ends up being inaccessible. So the city tends to swallow itself and lose its original identity in that process of explosive growth. So back in the Spanish times, they understood that the waterfront is its own feature of civic unity and activity. So this has maintained its navigability and its soul, mostly because it's just human scaled and everything is reachable. You don't get punished for staying here. It's functional, it's usable. Guys, let's have a semi-serious conversation about this, because here you're gonna see everything from backpacks, people that last maybe 2 days here, folks that have married up, coupled up with locals, and are here for the long haul. They will breathe their last breath here. And I understand both things, because I've met outsiders who, after 2 days being here, are like, oh, I'm so bored out of my mind, there's nothing to it, and they just get on the next thing, smoking out of here to something more exciting. And then I've met somewhere in the middle, and then I've met people who go, I can't see myself anywhere else. Your one choice is to live city center, where you can quite easily move around on foot, but then you have to be clever about, you know, your transportation. If you're gonna use just the jeepneys, the trikes, or get your own motorbike, then there's that safety issue of how congested the city tends to be most of the time around the clock. The other choice you have, where a lot of people, once they decide they want to stay longer term, even if that's only a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, is they'll go out to the outskirts of the city where it's much quieter. They can get a better price on an apartment. It's very easy, safe, convenient to jump on your motorbike at that point and go out into the nature hunting, the waterfalls, up in the hills, the volcano, the mountain, the forest. But the trade-off is, now you don't have at your fingertips, within walking distance every single day, this right here. So the people, from what I understand, who go live out in the outskirts or in the smaller townships and municipalities around, their complaint is they have to ride their motorbike or catch a trike ride, get it all parked, and then walk to this. So the trade-off is very real for them. They feel like they're missing out on one of the highlights of existing in this area. What's the right thing? I think you have to decide for yourself. With a permanent population of 150,000 people, you know, in the United States, that would be considered a pretty small place. But it's almost hard to wrap your brain around how much life activity there is here at that size. It's really quite surprising how much energy there in here. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from the fact that there's 6 or 7 colleges and universities in this city area. That's unheard of in a town of 150,000 in the United States, but anybody from the States knows university towns bring this useful energy from the constant influx of the young that come from the more rural areas seeking opportunity and education. Some of them stay, some of them go back, some of them go to the big city, but what it does is it keeps the streets alive and the cafes viable. The professors bring an intellectual standard and livelihood. Speaking of which, they're not just in these isolated gated communities, they are within and about the city, so that the entire student body participates in everything going on here. So while the student and campus life might give you enough nightlife that it feels alive, but without it feeling exhausting. Now, the attraction for the expat population, it's easy to list. Safety, affordability, English proficiency, which isn't just like a second language in this town, it's more like a co-first language. So it's very easy to navigate this place. Healthcare, multiple good hospital systems, and a new medical city being constructed right now to serve Negros Oriental province. And it looks like it's gonna be big. Now that's all fine, but what can tend to happen in a beach town that pulls the expats in is it can become an expat bubble where the economy reorients itself around these new guests. But that hasn't happened here. In spite of how many foreigners you will see out and about around the entire metro area, but even in the smaller outskirt beach towns up in the mountains in Valencia. So Dumaguete somehow has avoided this change where it never feels properly local or properly foreign, but some weird space in between that kind of loses a genuine cultural identity. The foreigners cluster, but here it's lightly rather than densely, so that it still feels genuinely welcome because the culture is still dominated by local traditions. Somehow it does that where it's indifferent enough to those of us as outsiders and welcoming at the same time that it maintains its original identity and still makes room for all of us. What I think might be one of the most powerful ingredients to the whole recipe is that the Boulevard, is the living room for everybody. So a lot of cities will have features like this, public spaces that are meant to be for everybody and open to all, but they're too difficult to get to, or you have to pay admission, or it's a forced participation. Not here. This is a completely different thing, and I've never quite seen anything like it where everybody uses it every day around the clock. It's a default setting if you don't know what else to do to come pass the time here. And it's been here for centuries, although it's expanding. Over the last few years, pushed it out into the water further, and there's more development happening. I think this boulevard works so well. I think a lot of people just wish that something like this was in more places that didn't get swallowed up by the development of major metropolitan areas. It's maintained its obvious original intent and soul. You have easy access to the port right over there where you can take boats to Siquijor Island, to Mindanao Island. Just further up in Sibulan, you can catch a boat over to Cebu Island. Right across the strait, just 15 kilometers from here is the other island. But it was never meant to be a destination. It was never meant to be beautiful, but it is. And that's the crazy thing, because it's this heart of the city that connects like arterially everything. The downtown gives it complete walkability. The port back there, public spaces where solitude feels comfortable. I think that's a sign of genuine civic health, because there's common spaces in the larger cities where you feel like you need to be doing something, like spending money at expensive restaurants. And there's just none of that here. Look around us. People don't have to defend themselves for existing here, because it's kind of like where you go when you don't have any other plans. What's not to like about that? People wander, people sit, people read, people go out fishing on the water just because it's here. So rather than just trying to build over what the Spanish got right in this place, Dumaguete and Negros Oriental have really leaned into it and understood how powerful of an anchoring element this can be. You know, cities that are hyper-connected can feel a little bit anxious. The big cities can feel like there's something there you should always be doing or somewhere you should be. Small towns can feel like you're missing out on the pulsing energy of life in the urban center. They can feel stagnant, like you're trapped with whatever you've been given to survive on. But Dumaguete is kind of in this sweet spot in the middle. There's just enough ability to go to all the other places and just enough resource to support modern living that you rarely feel like you do need to leave. But when you do feel like you need to leave, everything is within reach. You're 30 to 60 minutes from beautiful waterfalls, hot springs, jungles in the mountains, wildlife preserves. There's marine sanctuaries. There's world-class diving. 30 minutes down the road, Apo Island, Darwin. Just over here, this strait that passes between us and Cebu Island is one of the most fertile straits in all of the Philippines. Apparently, there's quite a bit of whale shark traffic moving through there. I don't know. I haven't gone swimming out there yet. But even right now, and late into the night, the local guys, they're out there fishing. They're out there doing the thing. So I'm not sure what comes first in a chicken or the egg sense about safety in the streets and streets being active, but both kind of exist here. Urbanists sometimes call it soft accountability, which is that it's just small enough that faces become familiar. So I've been here for 3 months now, which, considering the amount I've been traveling, that's actually a pretty lengthy period of time for me. But the great thing is, in that period of time, my face is beginning to be familiar. The places I frequent, they know me, they recognize me, they remember my name. People say hi. Security guards, they remember me. I walk the same streets every day. And I think everybody feels a similar sense of belonging. I see at the food tents, oh man, they're getting ready. They've been leveling out this earth here in preparation for some kind of construction and development. Check these guys out. I think cities that try too hard to matter end up making people feel a little bit isolated. But cities like this that never really cared about mattering sort of accidentally become livable. And I think that's the appeal, is that, you know, paradoxically, you're never really a stranger here after you've been here for a while. And something about that feels free. You feel a certain belonging here. So I don't know if Dumaguete and Negros Oriental province had the discipline, the geography, or the luck to make it work over centuries. Maybe they have all three. But if you can't find the place that calls to you anywhere else, come check out Dumaguete area. I've got like 8 or 9, 10 videos at this point documenting the really cool things I've seen, found, experienced around here. So check those out, and I hope you enjoy the ride. I will see you in the next town.